What's going on, YouTube? You guys know who I am. If you don't, stick around long enough and you'll find out. Today, we're going over my top 5 homesteading tips learned for 2022. So you may be wondering why the hell we're talking about homesteading or gardening or anything like that. That's not medical or tactics or firearms or anything like that. But in a sense that it is. And here at Everyday Citizens Tactical, we want to push, not only preparedness, but self-reliance and self-sustainment and all that kind of stuff. And this all comes along with that. It's being, that more resilient citizen. You don't necessarily need to lean on government and the institution and all of that. Become independent from the system. So we're going to talk about some of the things that I've learned throughout the year and probably will every year after this moving forward. So long as it helps new people or helps motivate people to get into this, whatever it may be. I'm also fairly new to all of this in a sense, at least at this scale. So, I kind of want to document this not only for myself, but for all of you, and hopefully it helps you guys along the way. For you guys that didn't catch the video early this year, I just bought this property at the end of May this year, 2022. So I was a little bit late to the planting season. Still had a great harvest. Lost some stuff, harvested a lot of stuff, all of that. We'll talk about that. So tip number 1, write down everything. And, going into this year, I wrote a lot of stuff down and had my plans on paper and all of that. But as planting started and, there's all these big spring and summer projects coming in, I kind of started to stray from my plan a little bit, or I would purposely not do something I wrote down, thinking I would go back later and write things down. And then, you forget things. For instance, my garden beds. I plan out my garden beds, what seeds and plants are going to go where, so on and so forth. Well, I planted, a bunch of onion and garlic next to each other, and they were supposed to go in a specific order in a specific bed. Well, then I planted them in the wrong bed, and I didn't remember if I planted one on the left or one on the right. And, that kind of started to get confusing in a sense. I also planted my varieties of tomatoes in the wrong spot. Just, and when you make those errors, you need to write that kind of stuff down, because then, you remember these things. Especially if you're starting from seeds, like my greens bed, my carrots, my parsley, my romaine lettuce, all that kind of stuff. Yeah, later you learn what is what when it starts to, grow and mature a little bit. You can see what the plant is, but in the beginning stages, you have really no idea what is what in a sense when it's just a little green sprout. So write things down. Write everything down. During the year as you make adjustments, before the year starts, after the year, write things down. Write everything down. Track your progress. Track what you're doing. You will thank yourself a ton in the long end. That also helps with harvest dates. If you plant something on a specific date or plan to plant something on a specific date and that changes, it gets delayed by a couple days, a week, whatever happens, maybe there's a delay because you have a really hot summer and, plants kind of stunt, whatever that may be, it's nice to be able to track the maturity of those plants. So write everything down. I cannot stress that enough. Number 2, interplanting. So I had a ton of open space in my garden this year, a lot more than I had initially anticipated. I gave some stuff a lot more space than it needed, and there was a few things I didn't give quite enough space. But even in general, I didn't plant, like basil with my tomatoes and, all those little things that you can research on the internet for hours and hours. There was some stuff I missed with that. I didn't take up as much space as I should have, or, really utilize as much space as I could have. And I didn't necessarily match plants the best. And that's a bit of a learning curve, and that's something you're going to learn through time. And I learned a lot of it this year doing all of this at the scale that I did. So interplanting is huge. You can research that for days and days and days and probably never find enough information. Number 3, garden protection. So if you can kind of see it behind me here, that's one of my areas for my raised beds. I got 4 raised beds right there. They're 5 foot by 10 foot. I started off with that and the corn and the watermelon. I'm sorry, the corn and the cantaloupe and the pumpkins on top of the hill. Everything was, I believe 3-foot chicken wire. Because I had chickens on the property. I wanted to keep them out. I wanted to keep rabbits and all that kind of stuff up off the ground. I was like, if I put some chicken wire up, maybe it will deter deer. I've been hunting deer for years, so I know deer can hop fences. But I was like, maybe it will deter them. Whatever that may be. That was not the case. About the second week of July, my green beans were looking great. Big, tall vines, lots of leaves, so on and so forth. And every single seed had sprouted. It was fantastic. And I came out here one day, and the deer got into the garden and ate every single one of the leaves off of the green beans. It essentially killed the plant. They also trampled my cucumbers, so I had to completely get rid of all the cucumbers, and then they, just walk through the gardens, bit off the tops of some of my tomato plants and whatnot, and just caused a bunch of havoc. So that was disappointing. So I put up some 7-foot T-posts in there with some higher wire. That's a 20 gauge fishing wire there, so that's about 6-7 feet tall now, and that's kept them out all year. But I didn't do it on top of the hill with the corn right away, and because corn wasn't mature, it wasn't pushing anything, so I was like, all right, I got time. Well, corn started to set in. I kept putting that project off longer and longer. And one day I went up there, and the deer had gotten in there and probably ate about a third of my corn. And they really didn't even eat the corn. They ate the silk, the female part of the corn, off the top of all the cobs, and then just a little bit of the top of the cob itself inside the plant. And I was madder than hell. We still had a really good corn harvest, so I'm very pleased with it, but we lost about a third of the corn to that. The chickens were very happy that day. I was not. So protect your garden, take the steps, spend a little bit of extra money to keep everything out. Needless to say, me and the deer have some beef to come here later this fall. Harvesting seeds. This is something you should have a game plan going into before the year started. So there were some things I learned about seeds that I did not know going into this year. For instance, peppers. I did not know that for peppers, they had to be mature to their color before you could harvest them. So for those of you that don't know, there is no such thing as a green bell pepper like variety or family in a sense. All bell peppers are green until they turn their mature color. So if you harvest the seeds of a green bell pepper, they will shrivel up, become brown, and most of the time be infertile. Same thing with like jalapenos or cayenne peppers or anything like that. You got to wait for your pepper to mature past the growth stage into the coloring stage and whatnot, then you can harvest those seeds. I've tried to harvest as many seeds as possible this year so I can self-sustain my own garden this coming year and hopefully years to come. I've got corn hanging and drying, so hopefully I can plant my own corn for my own seeds next year. Peppers, tomatoes, the full 9. So definitely have a plan for seeds. Understand when it's appropriate to harvest your seeds, what to look for, all of that kind of stuff. I kind of played that by ears throughout the year, and I really should have had a better plan for that ahead of time. So have a plan to harvest your seeds. I do have quite a bit of seeds though, so I am happy. There are some new plants I'm going to plant next year, so I will have to still buy some seeds, but that's part of the game. Number 5, grass management. So before the year started, before I put my fence up and whatnot, I cut the grass all the way down as bare as possible around my garden beds and then put my fence up around it. And I was like, okay, whenever the grass gets, long, I'll come in here and, I'll either mow if I can fit the mower because I measured the length of the mower, but not enough to maneuver the mower. That was on me. So I used the weed whacker a lot throughout the year, but then even that was fairly unideal to keep the grass, managed. If you're a person that is just direct sowing into the ground, you've tilled and made a bed or whatever it is, you don't have to worry about that as much so long as you can maintain the outside area as much. But if you're a person that does raised garden beds, you're going to have grass between all of your garden beds unless you completely remove that grass down to the dirt and then put down either mulch or rock, whatever that may be. Next year, I'm definitely going to cordon off a better area and create either a gravel or mulch walkway around my garden beds. That way I don't have to manage the grass as often as I cut the grass out here, because once it starts to get tall, that invites more and more bugs and whatnot. Your grass is getting tall, and it's just somewhat of a pain. So definitely prioritize your grass management as like a part of your plan going into everything. I wish I would have taken a little bit more time to think about that instead of, oh, I cut it really short and, I'll just trim it as I need to. Because as we all figure out for homeowners every year, your grass just blows up and you're like, well, where the hell did all this grass come from? As kind of a general review for this year, we have not lost any chickens yet. Fingers crossed, thank God. We have 24 black Aussies, 22 hens, and 2 roosters. They are 14 weeks old today, the day this video comes out, on Tuesday, September 13th. 14 weeks old today. So hopefully within about the next 2 weeks, they're going to start laying eggs. With the roosters with there and whatnot, I'm hoping next year to collect and incubate my own eggs and hopefully do meat chickens. Can't talk today. Meat chickens next year. I'm either going to do hogs or goats next year as well. And then hopefully later this week, I have my horse fence done because I cleared quite a bit of trees, and I can get my Tennessee Walker out here. It's been a busy summer and into fall, guys. It has. On top of everything else, I do for business and managing social media. We taught a few classes this summer, the Medical Response 1 classes, which went great. We're hoping to expand those classes as we come into the later part of fall and into winter. And then hopefully next year we have a bunch of new stuff coming out. We need to work out some logistics and some admin side of stuff, but we have a ton of ideas. And then just life, life happens, but you can't let life be an excuse to getting in the way of things that you need to do, things that need to get done. And if you're a person with a little bit of space, a little bit of land, you can do the homesteading things. Even if you live in a suburban area. Hopefully you don't live in a place with a homeowners association. If you do, you need to move. Sorry to tell you. But regardless, if you've got a backyard, with some fairly flat space, put 2 or 3 raised beds in there. Plant you some tomatoes, plant you some peppers, maybe some potatoes, maybe a couple things of cantaloupe or watermelon, get you a blueberry bush or something like that, and start to become a little bit more self-sufficient. Are you going to raise all of the food you ever need, on your property? Probably not. If you're a full-time homesteader and you're managing, hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands of square feet of garden space, and you have meat chickens and dairy cows and, egg chickens, and you have all of this kind of stuff, could you do it? Yeah. But the reality is most of us, we do this not just as a hobby, but as a way to work on ourselves. So we can't do this full time in a sense. We get a couple hours here and there, so on and so forth, manage the garden, do all that kind of stuff. So don't make excuses for yourself. It can be done no matter what your schedule looks like. Promise, it can be done to some extent. It may not be the extent that you want it to be done, but doing something is better than nothing. That's all I've got on the homesteading side, guys. If you don't have plans next year to do any of this, make plans to do some of this. If you live in an apartment, move out of an apartment if you can. That's what I did. I lived in an apartment for a couple years after I got out of the Marine Corps, and I was sick and tired of that. Needed to get out, was done with that. But if you're stuck in an apartment, get you a couple pots and plant you some stuff on your balcony if you can. That's all I've got, guys. Please like, comment, subscribe, share, do all the things that helps us out. Our website link is still broken on Instagram for whatever reason that may be, but it works here on YouTube. So you can head over to our websites, find more content, apparel, patches, medical, all that kind of stuff. It helps us out, and we very much appreciate it. Until next time, guys, train hard, train often.